another edition of Story Time with Uncle Njomo. Today we'll be looking at part 2 of the episode on names. Names. Today, the aspect we'll be touching will be names, a recognition of values. Names depict a recognition of values. I would like to take you to the plantations in Cameroon, especially plantations in the English-speaking part of the country. And we are looking at plantation life in one of the corporations, the Cameroon Development Corporations. Most of the workers in these plantations lived in camps. If you went to the camps those days, I'm talking about the 60s, for example, you would hear names. Names which might be comical, names which might carry a lot of humor, but names that carried a lot of values. Let me take one name in the CDC camps. Mr. Peter Godsabi. Mr. Peter Godsabi. What value comes out there? It tells you the value of that man. That is a man who recognizes the fact that God knows all, that all depends on God, and therefore he resigns his life, his fate, into the hands of God. Mr. Peter Godsabi. Now God know all. Let's look at another name. Mr. Lucas Mantrobo. Mantrobo. This tells you of a man who has the values of patience, a man who is very persevering in life. Take another name, Mr. Martin Headman. Mr. Martin Headman. This already tells you about a value in this man, that he should be a good group leader. Mr. Martin Headman. Then if you had a man with the name Fine Boy, for example, Mr. Moses Fine Boy, what does that tell you? Fine Boy, a man of elegance. A man who likes what we call in our local parlance, Nyanga man. Then you might hear a name like this, Mr. Samson Chacha. Why Chacha? It's because he has the values of a good dancer. There are names that carry a lot of recognition of values. But ladies and gentlemen, another part of it, we'll be talking about names which were used to establish an identity. Names used to establish an identity. I am thinking about the dawn of independence in Africa. There were two movements, those early days of independence. One, African personality, which was very prevalent in the English-speaking countries, Nigeria, for example. And then in the French-speaking countries, we'll be talking about the days of negritude. Let's talk about African personality. This was a movement to establish the African's identity. And of course, one of the group of persons who promoted that those days were our writers. Take, for example, Chinua Achebe, the Arrow of God. We're talking about negritude. This was prevalent in the French-speaking countries, where people wanted to assert their blackness, the beauty of being black, negritude. And of course, you had an author like Kamara Lai, who in his book, The African Child, promoted this movement. On that score, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to focus on Nigeria a little bit. Let's look at some of the early leaders. Sir Obafemi Awolowo. I give you a surprise. Do you know that one of the names of Obafemi Awolowo was Jeremiah? Oh, but he dropped it. Nnamdi Azikiwe. Do you know that one of his names was Benjamin? But then the Benjamin disappeared. One of the presidents, Olusegun Obasanjo, do you know that his name was Matthew? Look at it. Jeremiah for Awolowo and Jeremiah disappears. Benjamin for Nnamdi Azikiwe and Benjamin disappears. Matthew for Olusegun Obasanjo and that name disappears. Of course, from my analysis, dropping these names was definitely that drive to portray and to implant the African identity. Of course, this was a method, I believe, that they were using to intensify the country's drive for a peculiar cultural, economic, political, and religious identity. The results have been obvious. Look at like the Nigerian dressing. Today you move around Africa and there is a dress that is popularly known as senator. It's everywhere. Not only in Africa but even in Europe. You hear people talk about a dress. Goodluck Jonathan with buttons and his bowler hat. You hear people talk of Buhari, the long dress with a white collar. Listen to a Nigerian musician called Bright Chibeze, and he tells the story of a group of Nigerians who were in a hotel in London. They were there with their gari, and they prepared their gari and ogbono soup. My dear brothers and sisters, only one lump that they were taking to swallow. Somebody peeped from the window, a white man, and felt that this was an attempt at suicide. And he went and alerted the front desk. He said, you are sitting here, there are people in your hotel attempting suicide. And the people came and saw the kind of lump of gari that the people were swallowing. Yeah, they were swallowing it with all the pride. This was all peculiar about a people who had established an identity. Today, all I'm saying, ladies and gentlemen, is that let's use names to be proud of who we are, because they depict places, they depict ourselves, they depict our appearance, they depict your personality, your career path, and of course even your life choices. We just have to be wise as we give names to people, places, and even events. That will be it for today. Keep watching as we roll on with another episode.